Hey folks, it's Mark Murphy with TravelTube.com, and I think we have a little bit of a barn burner here today. I'm going to cover a few things. I'm going to try to do it in rapid fire. I'm going to respond to some of the comments from last week's podcast that got posted in several forums on Facebook. I'm very happy that they posted them. Always happy to have a dialogue, but it's obvious to me that the people that commented and were the most vocal about their opinion never actually listened to the podcast, because if they did, they would realize that they were out on left field and we were running the bases, because it was a story about media and misinformation and trying to blame the downturn in travel from places like Canada specifically to the orange man in the office, and specifically tariffs. You can believe it. Tariffs. Now, tariffs do affect things, but not to the extent that these travel advisors are talking about. In addition, I'm going to show stark differences as part of that in the difference in costs to travel to the U.S. versus some of the places that people are saying they're going instead of the U.S., like Portugal and Mexico, for instance. We're going to cover that. London's going to be unveiling a new tourist attraction, and I'll get into that and why it's always important to evolve. And then if you go big, as in your size, like you weigh 400 pounds, it's going to cost you more on Southwest. So let's get into it. I'm going to share with you this little comment area coming up here on There She Blows. All right. So in response to my podcast that I shared in this group and got a lot of comments on, there were people, posting a bunch of stuff. And then the moderator did a nice job. She said, hey, I want to know if you're outside the U.S., are you booking less travel to the U.S.? If so, what are you booking and why are your travelers booking elsewhere? Okay. There's that thing called confirmation bias. There's a lot of that going on here. But just to give you an example, clients are nervous to cross the border. They're afraid of being detained. Long stay guests are going to Portugal, Spain, and Mexico. Okay, cool. Great destinations. I've been to all of them, so can't say anything bad about them. And given the economics, I get it. But I got to address the clients are very nervous to cross the border. Okay, why would clients be nervous to cross the border? I mean, are your clients convicted criminals that are not allowed to enter the United States? Are they wanted by Interpol? Are they wanted for crime in the U.S.? Are they trying to sneak across the border as opposed to going through the normal customs and border protection processes? I mean, it's really easy. You come down from Canada, you can come through and be done before you even get to the U.S. I mean, you don't have to worry about landing and worrying about, am I going to be detained? Because that makes no sense. You're worried about being detained. You're a tourist coming to a destination. Why would you be detained? And why would you care? Why would you be concerned? Well, for the folks who didn't actually listen to the freaking podcast last week, guess what it is? It's because of propaganda. It's because the CBC does 70 to 80% negative news on the US and the Trump administration in particular. So for some reason, it's negative to not want to have illegal criminals in your country and to send them back. But I didn't hear anybody saying, oh my God, they're bringing in 20 million illegals, no vaccinations, no nothing, all coming across the border for 4 years. Like, that was fine. Like, sure, say hello to my friend Juan over here, who just came from Honduras, and he's a refugee. No, he's not a refugee. He is a criminal that entered our country illegally, because guess what, folks? We have a process. It's called seeking asylum. And by the way, if you're part of the treaty of the refugee treaty, I forget the name of it, it basically says you go to the first available country where you're not going to be persecuted if that's one of the reasons why you're seeking asylum. You can't seek asylum because the country's better and you'll make more money. That's not a reason, and you'll have a better life. That's not a reason. You seek asylum because you're fearful of your life, of persecution, etc. That makes sense. But if you do that, you go to a port of entry, you say you're seeking asylum, and you get into the process. No. They didn't do that. They basically paid cartel members to bring them across the border. That's how it happened. for 4 straight years. We had border crossings in the hundreds of thousands a month. A month. Yeah, and we put a stop to it. We're now down to close to zero, like single digits some month. I have no problem with that. The vast majority of Americans have no problem with that. But you're seeing stuff that's being portrayed from a media standpoint in a very biased way. And it starts with your own outlets. And then if you access US outlets, I got to be honest, it's not much better. And you see the same thing on the BBC and other outlets overseas. You hear much about, if you go to the UK, that the head of the Metropolitan Police could go through your social media. And if you say something that's deemed hate speech, meaning I don't want a bunch of Muslim immigrants coming into my country, you could technically, according to the head of the Metropolitan Police in London, said we could arrest you, not as an English citizen, as a Canadian citizen. Are you concerned about that? But Canadians are nice, so they don't say anything like that. I don't think so. I think you do that. And, but I don't hear anybody worried about going to the UK. But who wants to go to the UK these days anyway? I don't know. You tell me. All right. Bookings are down. Oh my God, this is very sad. My travel to the US is almost zero right now. This one says they're going to Europe and Caribbean. Could it have anything to do with money? Let's see. They do escorted cruises. Okay, that's cool. And this doesn't make any sense. Right here, my next is Caribbean this winter. Sadly, most Canadians are staying home. So now they're not going on Caribbean cruises. Why? Because they got to fly into Fort Lauderdale Airport or Miami to get on a cruise, or Galveston, go down to Galveston, or fly into New Orleans and go out of there. I mean, like, hello, it's a Caribbean cruise. It's not a US cruise, a Caribbean cruise. So again, not making much sense here. And so I look at it and go, well, why are these people doing this? I have people say that they won't go until Trump is gone. Okay. I mean, I thought Trudeau was a putz. Did I not travel to Canada and start a company up there because your prime minister is a moron? No, I didn't. And if you think he's great, that's why you got Carney. How's that working out? So it's really interesting. I think this is good. The movement in Canada is to buy Canadian. And if you can avoid buying American, sure. Like if I can buy US made products, I do the same. I have no problem with that. That is nationalism. And nationalism is not a bad word. It's like, I'm proud of my country. I want to fly my flag. And I know Canadians feel that way. And, they market with a maple leaf. That's super cool. I think that's great. However, then I see this. I live in Florida half the year, and many Canadians are selling their homes. I totally get it. FYI, I live in Florida as my primary home. I'm there like 8 months a year. And let me tell you why they're probably selling their homes. They could be saying it's because of Trump, but did Trump cause the hurricanes that raised their wind insurance if they have a mortgage? And if they have a second home, they probably have a mortgage. Did Trump raise their insurance premiums because of the hurricanes? Remember, he wasn't in office, so hard to blame him for it, but I'm sure you could find a way. Let's see. My wind insurance was like, I don't know. I didn't have a mortgage on my house. I put one on after a big renovation just to take money out at a really low rate and invest it. And then I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done that because I self-insured my house. I have a roof that can withstand 160 mile an hour winds and blah, 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 whatever, because everything is hurricane grade. I've got hurricane windows, but I am on the water. So that insurance went from $5,000 for wind insurance. It hit $17,000. Now it's down to $14,000. My combined property tax, and I'm homesteaded, meaning they can only raise my taxes a small percentage every year. Not the same for a second home owner out of Canada. You're going up with whatever the change is. It's not fixed. I think we're fixed at like max 3%. You come in and you're not homesteaded, you're going to get jacked every year, especially as the home values go up. What's happened to home values in Florida? They've gone way up, way up. They've doubled in 5 years. So you're sitting on a home that maybe you bought in 2014. It might be up 300%. And all of a sudden you're getting hit with these taxes. You're getting hit with the insurance costs. My insurance and tax costs, and I'm at a low tax rate for my house. I pay $60,000 a year, US. How much would I need if it was Canadian? I would need, about 85,000 Canadian to cover that. And my house isn't some massive, mansion. It's a good sized house. It's 4 bedrooms and has an office. I think 4.5 baths, if I'm recalling correctly. But it's 60 grand a year. Could it have anything to do with that? While at the same time, your prime minister comes in and your exchange rate is almost parity. It's like $1.03 the year before Trudeau took over. Then it went to $1.07, $1.08, $1.10. Now it's $1.40 Canadian to buy $1 US. Could that have something to do with it? Because even though you have a house here, now all those costs are coming at a much higher rate of exchange. If you bought your house 10 years ago, you needed $1.10 to pay $1 of insurance premium. Now you need $1.40 Canadian. Did you get a 30 or 40% increase in your take-home pay out of Canada? Or are you retired? And that's how you can do the 6 months here and 6 months there. You're probably retired. Do you have a, way to earn money while you're living in Florida and going back and forth? I don't know. But a lot of those people are on a fixed budget. And when something gets out of whack, something has to give. Plus, if you've made 300% on your house, take the money and run. Because you can take that money, invest it, that equity, and go stay in Europe anytime you want. Like you can do whatever the hell you want. So again, what is the real reason? And I'm telling you, if you're selling your house and you're Canadian and you're selling it in Florida, it's probably not because of Donald Trump, because that would just be stupid. Because if you are that stupid and obtuse that you're selling your house because a guy who guaranteed will not be here in 4 years, now 3.5 years, he will be gone. So you're going to sell your house because there's a guy that's going to be here for 3.5 years that you'll never see, never touch. Yeah. Try to have that make some sense, folks, because it just doesn't. And anybody who says it does, wow. I mean, I got to check your credentials because, we might have to put you into that assisted living facility. So what are people asking for? So here's somebody, all reports we see here. Now I'm assuming she lives on the West Coast because I have a sister-in-law who's on the West Coast. They live in an over 55 community and there is a glut of homes for sale by Canadians. Again, like I said, what's driving it? Is it a guy's going to be out of office in 3.5 years, or is it the cost? Or they just want to take that equity and do something else with it? I mean, I'd love to sell my house in Colorado, but my 2 kids live in it and they're broke musicians. So that's the way it goes, right? Again, selling more Europe, and I'll show you why that's happening. I'm booking less USA, UK people. This is a UK person, don't want to go because of the publicity with ICE and anything political. Have you seen the Muslim invasion of the UK? Have you seen your streets taken over by Muslim prayer sessions? Instead of going to the mosque, they just stop in the middle of the street and block traffic. Yeah, I've seen that. Is it real? Is it widespread? I don't know. It's the BBC. How the hell do I know? But that's what's going on. So again, now on the other hand, no one wants to go to Mexico. Oh, this is a guy selling the US. But here, some of my clients are Muslim. Okay, I get that. They're Muslim. Okay, so you don't want to come to the US. And it's ironic that I just said that because the clients are Muslim. Because there has been an Islamic invasion of the UK. And anybody who can look at it, the number one name in the UK right now for newborn babies, number one, Muhammad. Okay, so that's what you get when you have unfettered illegal immigration. And that's what the UK government is currently supporting. And I think they're approaching a boiling point in the UK. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, their culture and heritage is definitely changing in real time. So what else do we have? No bookings or inquiries. Everyone is afraid of the States. Again, more being denied and deported for no reason. Please tell me a single Canadian that came to the US and got deported, detained, and then deported. Tell me one. Give me one Canadian. This is somebody named Kelly. Kelly, can you please email me? mark@traveltube.com. That's my email. Please email me and say, hey, Mark, yes, this is one. I will do a podcast and I will point that out. But just like we have people in the US saying that American citizens are being kidnapped on the streets and being arrested and deported and sent to El Salvador and the prison, the CCOT. Never happened. Never happened. But there are people that almost like mentally ill think it happened. So again, is this your fear taking hold, or is this really what's going on? Huh? So please, Kelly, hit me up. Hit me up. And Violet, I think you nailed it on the head. Nobody wants the U.S. at the moment from us. Much better value and safer to head to Dubai, Maldives, and Asia. Sure. You can go retire in Thailand, for instance. And if you have $2,000 a month, you can live like a king. You can do the same thing probably for $1,200 a month if you live in Vietnam. You can go to a lot of places and live there year round and even become at some point like a permanent resident. But as long as you can prove that you can sustain yourself, which is really interesting because pretty much any country will not allow you to come in and overstay your tourist visa, right? They don't. For some reason, we get criticized in the US. It's like, oh my God, you want to deport these people? Yeah, because they broke our freaking laws. They came across the border saying they're seeking asylum. They weren't seeking asylum. What they were doing is they were coming in here, and I don't blame them for a better life. But there are rules, and you broke them. And now you need to go and then get back in line and do it the right way. I've actually sponsored people, literally sponsored people. And a guy who I sponsored back in 2005, 20 years ago, came from Malaysia, went to college here. I sponsored him. I got him his green card in like 14 months because he had an advanced degree. Did he leave? Nope. Stayed with me all the way through. And when I was going to sell my company, he knew I was selling it because I told him. He's like my second son. I call him my second son. He's my son from another mother, but I'm not the father. Okay, be clear. Nick. And here's Nick, who's contributing. Whereas all these other people, these 20 million people that came in, they're all on the dole. Unsustainable. You see it in the UK. You see it in Ireland. It's going on all over Western democracies, so-called democracies. That's the nature of the beast. But if I want to go to Thailand, I have to prove that I'm not going to be a burden on the state. If I want to go to any of these countries and be like, hey, I want to live here year round. Okay. Show me your bank account. What's your source of income? We're going to run a background check as best we can. We're going to find out anything we can about you. And then we're going to deny you if you don't meet our requirements. But we get condemned as a country for trying to enforce our own borders. And then as a result of enforcing our own borders, we have travel agents in Canada thinking that their clients could be detained and deported. Please, folks. Oh my God, just please. It's bizarre what you're telling us. It really is. All right, let me get out of this. I'm going to jump into a couple other things. One of the things that I mentioned, by the way, for financial reasons, let's take a quick look. Let's see. I'm gonna share this because I think it's economics. I don't think it's what people are telling you. All right. How much does it cost to stay in Mexico for a month? $800 to over $2,000, depending on your travel style and location, with budget options in less expensive cities costing around $800 to $1,200. Okay. Woo. And you're a premium travel if you got $2,000 or more. So I can understand why people in Canada would be like, maybe I'll go to Mexico. Okay. Now it's not an all-inclusive in Mexico, but it is what it is. All right. Let's go. Let's see how that compares to, let's see. We got Portugal. Okay. Let's see what it says about Portugal. Is it cheaper to go to Portugal? Oh my God, if you're Canadian, it's almost certainly cheaper to spend a month in Portugal than in the USA due to significantly lower costs for basically everything other than the airfare. And sometimes it's cheaper to fly to Portugal than it is to the US. There you go. And the rent for the place you're going to stay, if you're staying like in a 1 month apartment or house rental, is about 70% cheaper than the US today. So I get it. So your exchange rate went from $1.03 in 2014 to $1.40 to buy a US dollar. So what's that? Almost a 40% increase in cost. Just everything being the same. But everything's not the same, folks. What's happened in the US? Demand for travel's gone through the roof. Prices have gone through the roof. Just ask the people in Vegas. I just saw a post. The guy went out to dinner, had a steak dinner at, I think it was, was it, you know what? I'll have to come back to the name, but it was a high-end restaurant. And just the steak alone was $85 for the steak. Then you had to buy the sides. It was like $150 before you had alcohol per person. That's a $500 dinner easy for two people with alcohol. The bottles of wine, probably the cheapest bottle you're going to find on the menu is like $80. So yeah, it's freaking expensive. It's a hell of a lot cheaper to go to Portugal. It's just a fact. And I just wanted to let you know that Fort Lauderdale, remember the Mexico, 2,000 and a little above, you're a premium traveler. The baseline starts, if you want to come to Fort Lauderdale for a month, $5,000 for a single traveler. $10,000 to $12,000 if you're traveling as a couple. If you're traveling as a family of four, $20,000 plus for a month in Fort Lauderdale. So yeah, I understand where you're paying 13% in sales tax. If you live in Toronto, for instance, you're giving up a third of your income to all that quote free healthcare you guys talk about so much. And your wages have been stagnant according to your own government. The GDP per capita for Canada compared to the US has diverged dramatically. Ours going up, yours now it's going down. Bad sign. So yeah, there are a lot of issues taking place. And if you go back to the podcast from last week, listen to it, because the people that are the most vocal are the ones that don't actually listen to the podcast and then comment based on anything I said that they want to refute. It's all about their feelings and emotions. How do you feel? What are your emotions? It hurts. It hurts. People just don't want to go. You know, they don't like Orange Man. They're not going to travel until, you know, he's gone. You know, he's gone 3.5 years. So they're going to sell their house because they just don't like Trump. He's got 3.5 years left, not even less than that on his term. You sell your house. No, you didn't sell your house because of Trump. Stop. God, asinine. No, that's called an excuse, folks. That's not why. It's because the costs have gone through the freaking roof and you can find better value. Go buy a freaking home and live 6 months in Portugal. You will save a ton of money. You'll sell your house for a 200 or 300% gain. If you're Canadian, you'll take that gain and you'll go buy a house in Portugal and go live there like a king compared to living in Florida. That's just a fact. Why do you think some Americans are moving to Portugal? Why do you think Americans are moving to Panama? Why do you think Americans are moving to places in Mexico? Same reason. But they don't say, "Oh, I don't like Trump. I'm getting out of the country," because everyone has common sense. He's leaving in 3.5 years. Okay? He wasn't there 4 years ago. And when people cite safety and crime, according to every blue city mayor, just now in the last 2 weeks, since they brought the National Guard out to tamp down crime in DC, is all saying crime has been way down in the US just recently. Big drop in crime versus 23 versus 24, now into 25. Cool. So you were okay coming to the US when it was much higher crime, but now because of crime and fear, square that, folks. Square it. You can't. It makes 0 sense. The data is the data. Now, do I think the data is 100%? Absolutely not. Do I think the trend has been down? Yes. Since the 2020 BLM riots and all that nonsense, the COVID craziness, and these lawless cities with no cash bail, which is a recent thing of just a few years old, defund the police. You remember all that after 2020? It was all about defunding the police, no cash bail. You know, you can't have a bail that's tied to cash. If I have no assets, you can turn me out on the street 2 hours after you book me, even if I committed a violent crime. So what do? I go commit another crime. And that's what's been happening. But now that we have law and order, and the numbers, according to the people on the left in the US, which are a lot of your friends, for some of those folks in Canada that veer way left. And again, I had a business up there. Every employee I had up there, far left, just saying. They're journalists, far left. And they'd probably go, yes, you're right, I am. I've actually had a journalist say to me that worked with me for years, I'm actually a communist. I'm like, okay, well then why are you working here? He's like, well, you're a good capitalist. I'm like, okay. But anyway, it's about the money. It's about the money. And that's just the way it is. So you can keep telling me it's something else. Good luck. Good luck. That's a tough one. Very tough one. And when you say, well, Mark, there's other factors, there's this and that. Here's the big reveal, folks. The Canada USA prosperity gap. Look at where we were in the 70s, all the way up to 80. And then we hit 1980. What changed in 1980? We had a president, Ronald Reagan. We went from being almost, look at you, right here. A couple years later, you were on par with us in 1981. Look at that, right there, on par, right around $30,000 per capita, GDP per capita. Then, because of policies that actually worked, around 1988, we hit 40,000, just a shade under 40,000. What happened to Canada? It dipped. It got shot up to about 33,000 and then dropped to 31,000. The US continued its tear, getting to over 55,000 or close to 55,000 just before 2010. We had the financial crisis. We felt the dip, just like everybody else. You guys were lagging. You were about $9,000 per capita, GDP per capita at that point in time, difference between the US and Canada. Everybody felt the dip in 2010. We continued the trajectory up, except for the hiccup of COVID, and continued straight up. Whereas pretty much after 2010, there was a weak recovery in Canada. It looks like you got to about 45,000 GDP per capita. You had the hit down to about 43,000 in COVID. You pop back up to about 46,000, and now you're on a downward trend. The US had their dip, and now we're at 66,000 and soon to approach 70,000 GDP per capita. Canada has been stagnant, and you've been pretty much stagnant going back to about 2008 before the financial crisis. Anybody can look this stuff up, folks. This is not, some amazing reveal. These are the things that are going on, and that's a result. Now, if you're going to be upset about that as a Canadian, I can't help you. If you're going to use other things as an excuse not to sell certain destinations or not be able to sell certain destinations because of the economics of it, which I believe is like the research shows, TD Bank and Blue Cross both did surveys 6 months apart that said up to 80% of the reason that travel to the US is down is because of economics. 80%. That's from people telling them. Now, of course, I get the person who doesn't listen to the podcast. Oh, surveys and the way the survey is constructed, and I'm working on my term paper, and I'm a college kid, or maybe I'm going to grad school. I don't know, but I took a stats class, and yeah, well, I actually owned a business in Canada. I had to hear about your lived experience. I've actually designed and deployed hundreds of surveys as a business owner. So yeah, spare me your self-righteousness. Do me a favor. If you want to speak intelligently, what you should do is go listen to the podcast. And the podcast was a takedown of a media take that was complete bullshit from a former writer of mine. And I basically didn't call him out or the outlet out, but it was bullshit. It was total bullshit. And the reason it was because it framed things around tariffs impacting travel. Now, I didn't see one quote on that on those Facebook comments about the tariffs. It was always about Orange Man bad and the politics. Could tariffs be considered politics? No, it's economic, but whatever. So the tariffs don't affect your ability to travel to the US. You might be mad that you're getting a tariff from a country that's your next door neighbor and your biggest trading partner. But again, go back and look who is in charge in your country. Look who was in charge for a decade, and look at your trend lines. And then ask yourself, why did we elect Carney? He hasn't even lived in the country for what, like a decade? But yeah, that's why. Hey, bring him in from the bullpen. That's baseball. I know you guys got a baseball team, but that's baseball. American sport, by the way. Anyway, I'm being a little facetious, but I'm also being serious. So let me get out of here and let me jump back to a few things going on in the world of travel. So one of the things that's going on in the world of travel right now are the folks that think they deserve something because they're special. Here's somebody, and I'm going to pull this lady up. Let's get it started here. Okay, that starts out. My body is the problem. Let's just go back. Okay, how do I say this? Unbelievable. Her body isn't the problem. Lady, you probably weigh 500 pounds. I weigh 180. I can fit in a seat. Do I just fit in a seat? Well, the seats are tight. And the airlines have intentionally done that. So somebody like me, I'm a 6'2" 180-pound male. I can fit. Do I pay for premium? Yeah, because I want more leg room because I got long legs. Okay. If I was 5'5", it'd be much better. My wife's 5'5". Well, really 5'4.5". She doesn't mind sitting in any coach seat. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, oh my God. If it's a long flight, yeah, it's tight for me. But do I insist that the airline reconfigure all their seats? No, I know it's a means to an end. When you have people that believe they should have what? I mean, what should she have? She needs a row. She needs 2 first-class seats to fit. Um, she needs like a health coach. She needs a fitness uh, person, a personal trainer. Stop flying, stop eating, and get yourself to a reasonable weight. Okay. Now, I have family members who are big boned. They're larger than me. I'm a skinny guy. I'm an ectomorph. That's how God made me. Can't help it. But at the same time, I look over here and I go, oh my God, she's never going to be tiny, but for the love of God, you just saw that. She's entitled to a larger seat or multiple seats on a flight and not have to pay for it because she is, just that way. That's her body. That's not the problem. It's the system. It's the system. We got to dismantle the system. Does that sound familiar? Wow. So yeah, she's a good size person, and she doesn't deserve anything except the ability to pay for an extra seat. And Southwest, breaking news, they just revised their policy where you can't just show up and if there's an extra seat, they give it to you for free, or you can buy it there at the airport if you need to pay for it. But now you have to actually buy it in advance. So again, self-awareness, you weigh 450, 500 pounds, you might need 3 seats. You need to buy all 3 seats. Now, the good news is if you show up at the airport and you bought 3 seats because you're this wide, and there's 2 extra seats open on the plane, you can fill out a form, send it in, and they will refund those 2 seats. So it's more of a hassle. You got to do it in advance because if you do it at the airport, because they say, ma'am, you're not going to fit in a single seat, you need to purchase another seat. You are purchasing the seat at that new price that day, not the price of $180 that you booked a month ago or 2 months ago, whenever you booked your flight. So the flight's going to cost a lot more, and otherwise you ain't getting on it. But we're supposed to feel sorry for that person. I personally, I don't. I believe that everybody has free will and self-determination, and you just have to do what you got to do. Now, that is just one thing, but at the same time, there's a really interesting new attraction that I wanted just to touch base on before I leave you folks. Here it is. I haven't been to London in a while, but I've been to London. I can't even count how many times I've been to London, but I would go to London just to check this out. And this is secret tunnels that helped inspire the James Bond series. And they're going to be open to the public with a bar. And basically these tunnels were built 100 feet below the streets of London. And by the time they were complete in 1942, the blitzkrieg of the bombing of London had stopped because the idea was they were going to build these and create secure areas. But then the subways stations became the bomb shelters. They never really opened them up. And then the military used that. And yeah, it's It's a pretty cool concept. And Ian Fleming, the creator of the James Bond series, he was there in the subterranean headquarters, and he believes that the gentleman on this story believes that that was the idea behind Q. Remember, like you go and you see all the cool stuff, and you're in this like secret agent place. That's what it is. I love this stuff. I love spy novels. I love watching all that, and I would find this really enjoyable, and it would bring me back to London. It would bring me back to London. So I don't know how you feel. Would it bring you back to London? I hope it would. In the meantime, do me a favor. I should have said this at the start. Need you to go over to traveltube.com and just sign up with your email. We don't spam you. We'll just send you the newsletter every week. You'll get the latest stuff that's coming out. If you haven't noticed, we feature travel advisors and their expert insights and the video content that they create when they travel. It's open to all travel advisors and even their customers who want to come in and check it out. And please follow us on the podcast apps. Even if you want to watch it on the site, if you at least subscribe on the podcast app, that helps our rating and gets us more visibility. And the more of you that do that and share it, I mean, you're a force to be reckoned with when you collectively do things. But you're also, like I said, with the whole Canadian situation, sometimes you're not, you're missing the forest for the trees. So this is where I sit, and this is how I see things. And one thing you can always count on from me, you're going to hear it straight. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I'm also not going to stand up for bullshit. And when people who haven't even taken the time to understand the context of what they're commenting on, yet feel self-righteous to comment on it, you're what they call, if you were a voter, you'd be a low information voter. You're a low information commenter, and you'd be better off not displaying your lack of context or ability to understand a situation by just simply zipping it. But unfortunately, the biggest mouths that I've come across in the last 5 years, and it kind of started with COVID, that's where like the most outspoken people were the most blind and clueless people when it came to that pandemic. And I'll leave you with this thought. There were people in 2020, 21, 22, and to this day that still feel like, oh my God, it was so scary. It was so terrible. The pandemic. And here's the irony. If you used a little bit of critical thinking and you paid attention to what was actually happening, you would have known that by the end of May 2020, while many states, cities had lockdowns in place, businesses weren't allowed to open. Thank God I lived in Florida and things had opened up very quickly and we got back to normal very quickly. But a lot of places took over a year, some 18 months to open up. Yet by May of 2020, you had protests in the street, BLM protests. And on June 5th, what happened? CNN ran an article that stated that over 1,200 healthcare workers signed a petition asking local government and state agencies to drop, quote, all COVID mandates. So yeah, if you were going to protest for BLM, that's self-righteous. You can march 10,000 people down the street screaming at the top of your lungs, shoulder to shoulder, no masks, no distancing, no nothing. You, the average person on the street, just going about running your business, going to church, you couldn't go to church. You couldn't go see your dying mother. You couldn't hold a wedding. You couldn't go to a funeral. Okay? So if you still believe that the pandemic was real, and many of you do, it's usually the 20, 25% clown people in the clown car over here. Yeah. Wow. You have failed critical thinking 101. Healthcare workers want you to drop all mandates. Cities drop all mandates, yet selectively enforce them when it's not politically expedient to allow people to do something. So they enforce it when they can just do it. Tyranny. But when it's politically expedient, oh, you're a BLM protester. You 10,000 people. Oh man, when you're protesting, you can't get sick. Just like you can get on a plane and fly where? Oh, Jesus. You get on a plane and fly where? You can fly all the way to Asia in a beer can, like literally a cylinder, and breathe all the air, right? And they have HEPA filters and everything. I've talked a lot about that on TV. But at the same time, you can fly in a beer can, but you can't go on a public beach because it's too dangerous to breathe fresh air. You can't go on a cruise. God forbid. They shut the cruise industry down for 18 months. Not a peep, nothing. And a lot of travel agents went along with it. And I swear to God, to this day, there are still people out there wearing masks. And if you had a half a brain cell, you would know that they do nothing. They actually are worse for you. But, again, there'll be people, I know they're good. I want to wear it, man. Because, I'm just the R word. Yeah, I said it, the R word. Yeah. Hope that didn't trigger you. But if it did, I don't really care. I spew facts. I spew actual data. And you can question the source of the data. Like, is it really the GDP per capita that bad in Canada versus the US? Does it really diverge like this? Up for debate. You go ahead. Oh, we've got more, billionaires, so therefore excuse it. Okay, bring it down a little bit. Do whatever you want. But the economy in Canada is doing great. Yeah, no, it's not, and you know it. They don't tax us a lot. Yeah, they do. Costs haven't really gone. They've gone through the roof. The exchange rate. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, at least the exchange rate, I can look at that and see if it's historically correct. Yeah, it's only gone from $1.03 in 2014 to $1.40, but that hasn't changed any of your decisions. And when you're paying in Canadian dollars for your wind insurance, and now it's going to cost you $25,000 for wind insurance, maybe that's the reason you're selling your freaking house in Florida. Or maybe it isn't, because I'm not you. But there are a lot of factors, folks. And it's not always what the loudmouths want you to think. Till next time, sign up, follow us, and catch you later.